There we are. I'm happy whenever. Thank you. So good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. So the meeting this evening is for the Performance Scrutiny Committee Partnerships, and it's on Wednesday, 19th of November 2025. And just to remind colleagues there's a statement there just to remind colleagues that this Scrutiny Committee meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act of 2021, which will operate alongside the Council Standing Orders. The Council Standing Orders and Code of Conduct will apply at all times, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and the images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the council. Thank you as always for listening to that, colleagues there. So we're going to the first part of the agenda, which is apologies. Can we have the apologies? Any apologies?
Got apologies, Chair, from Councillor Peterson and Councillor Hussain.
Thank you. And is there any other apologies from anyone else there in the room? No, thank you very much there. And is there any declarations of interest?
No, Chair.
No, a resounding no, that's fine. Thank you very much there. So we'll move on to the substantial report for this evening, which is the Newport Norse Joint Venture Partnership Annual Report 2024 to 25. And is there a person that's going to speak first of all on this one, please?
Shall I start, Chair? That's Tracy.
Of course, Tracy. Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So I'll just explain who we've got in the room in case you can't quite see. So we've got the three assistant directors from Newport Norse, which is Sarah, Jake and Carl, will all support us on the report today. Myself as the Head of Service for Assets, Rhys Cornwall as the Director, and Councillor Ian Howells as the Cabinet Member. Just before we get into the report, Chair, everyone, I just wanted to explain a little bit, because of the timing of this report, about the new company, because we won't be covering that tonight. So Newport Norse comes to an end on the 31st of December. So this, in effect, is the last full year's report to Partnerships Committee on the work of Newport Norse. The new company, Custom Cymru, starts on the 1st of January. A lot of work going on to set that up and set up the governance, and we anticipate coming back to scrutiny on that once that's set up with future annual reports. But for tonight, I would just ask members if we could focus on the performance of the Norse joint venture rather than the new company, because clearly we haven't had the business plan and the details signed off for that yet, and we've still got some elements of staff consultation ongoing. Thank you, Chair. And can I hand over to Sarah, is it, who's going to talk us through the report?
Yeah, so the three of us obviously will take different parts of the report in various sections. I just wanted to start really with an introduction, just reminding those that maybe are not so familiar with the partnership what Newport Norse is. So it's a joint venture partnership between Newport City Council and the Norse Group. We provide a one-stop shop solution to Newport for a range of property-related services. So the JV has been in place since 2014. And from its inception, turnover has increased from 7 million to 30 million per annum, increasing local employment with 110 additional posts. So obviously the purpose of the report today, it's been prepared in order to document the performance of the business throughout the previous financial year. The report this year is split into two main sections. The first being a review of our strategic themes and the targets that we set ourselves to align with those themes. And then the second section is to discuss social value relating to the Welsh TONS framework and the 7 wellbeing goals that fit within that. Jake is going to take you through an overview of what those 4 themes are, focusing on the first 2, and then Carl and I will come in thereafter on the others.
Thanks. So Sarah's sort of said the report is split into 2 sections. One is effectively around business performance, the second part was social value. So for business performance, we measure that in a number of ways on our scorecard, and we split those into 4 themes, so being finances, customer, people and process. If I talk about finances first, obviously we can also say it's business, we provide a service, as money comes into the business and comes out of the business. So you can see on sort of page 13 that we've split each section into having our business objectives we set at the start of the year in business plan, and then we put some outcomes against them, a little bit of commentary. So financially for the year 24-25, so into March obviously, we had a turnover of 29.9 million. This was against the target of 20 million. That sort of uptick in turnover was delivered out of a number of sort of our services and parts of the business. Those being some schools joined our cleaning SLA during the period, that's extra income. Schools have spent more money with us, predominantly through discretionary funding, things like what we're looking at the schools budget, so where they have funding available to do works on the buildings, but then also supporting NCC in its efforts to start the carbon reduction plan, where we put in air source heat pumps and interventions like that across the estate. So all of that activity across the business then generates turnover and generates an operating surplus. That was 1.4 million last year versus the target of 1.2 million. And the end result of that surplus is then there's a rebate back to NCC in the start of the following financial year once we've audited it. And that last year was 799k versus a target of 707. So it's worth noting that at sort of the end of that small financial section, at the point of the end of this report, not including the sort of offering service this year, the rebate to NCC over the life of the partnership has been around 5.6 million. And that was sort of the financial performance of the organisation.
Yeah. Okay, so customer performance, we set 4 key targets this year. First, to support the council in creating their own NACO. It's been a major collaborative effort between Norse and council parties. There's been a lot of good work done to date, and still a bit to do, but also looking good for the start of the year. Second, to strengthen our social value work. As you can see later in the paper, this is really much improved on what it was before, and something we're really quite proud of. Third, to improve the customer feedback, aiming for 90% satisfaction. To be honest, we handle over 12,000 maintenance requests and roughly 157,000 cleaning hours annually, so feedback is vital to us. Unfortunately though, and despite our best efforts, our annual survey had a low return rate, only 14 responses out of 71 customers. And from those surveys, 82% were satisfied with the service they had received. The negative feedback received really focused on our business processes, which we go through, and quoting delays. We addressed a lot by improving communication and introducing time-based triggers throughout the process. And finally, fourth, to maintain strong engagement with client and stakeholder groups through regular NCC meetings and liaison sessions. Continued active participation in NCC meetings and liaison sessions, including monthly JV meetings, termly education groups, and bi-monthly health and safety meetings. Still down compliments and complaints. We've received from ourselves 3 formal complaints for the year. However, on a more positive note, we received 49 compliments from colleagues. Finally, just a note, despite any perceived uncertainty around the joint venture ending, we still managed to secure new cleaning contracts for 2 primary schools and 1 secondary school in the year.
Okay, then move on to people. So in terms of people performance, we have a number of initiatives in order to train and develop our colleagues and grow our own talent pipeline for the future. These include supporting the hire of apprentices, delivering local work experience opportunities and building career pathways for our existing staff. In 24-25, we were able to employ 4 new apprentices across administration, FM and the trade sections of the business. And we've also sponsored a number of colleagues to obtain further technical and professional qualifications. We also work with Careers Wales and the local schools to deliver work experience placements and employability sessions. And we also attend careers events where various colleagues support by sharing their experience in the industry and talking about the careers available in the property sector. In terms of communication with our staff, we regularly maintain staff engagement to communicate effectively with all our colleagues. Examples of this are in-person staff briefings and newsletters. Obviously, there's been much more of that in the last year or so after the change that's forthcoming. We also hold a quarterly celebration lunch to recognise colleagues that have gone above and beyond or been complimented by customers and colleagues. The final theme is process. This is in relation to our commitment to continually improving the quality, safety and environment management of the business, and we have successfully maintained our ISO accreditations for 24-25. Additionally, our annual external audit was noted as one of the most detailed and compliant across the Norse Group. Key activity has also included contribution to NCC's budget setting processes for 25-26, continued development of the C365 compliance platform, and further progress at reducing our environmental impact by obtaining more electric vehicles into our pool fleet. So that just covers the 4 themes in the first half of the report. The next section moves on to the social value. Jake is just going to give an overview of the 7 wellbeing goals that are included in that.
So, social value. There's a summary page in the report, page 21, that talks around what social value is, and apologies if I repeat this last year with another forums. It's sometimes difficult to sort of understand because we talk about monetary figures, so we convert activity via property values into a measurable monetary figure that we can then start to compare activities. It's effectively the point of social value. So it's a broad term that sort of tries to recognise the social, environmental, economic benefits from activities organisations undertake. The social value framework we operate within is called the TOMS framework, and this was set up in Wales by a collaborative. If I use Welsh Government as a term, it's a bit complicated than that, but there's effectively a central function that's developed this and sent out. There's a number of TOMs available, and Newport City Council have then selected a number of those TOMs by which to measure themselves and people they partner with. That happened in August 2022, and in August 2023, the Newport Norse board then, in collaboration with Council, selected a subset of those TOMs, or schemes and outcomes measures, that would apply to our business. So obviously things like social care TOMs as well, that don't apply to Newport Norse because we're in spaces, the ones that have been selected for us, that we agreed with the Council. Each of those TOMs then have a proxy value, so some of them are yes/no questions. So it's a union recognition. That's a yes, we recognise unions, and that sort of counts towards social value. Isn't given a monetary figure, but other things like the number of electric miles driven have a monetary figure that's provided outside of Newport Norse by Welsh Government TOMS framework, and that's passed to us from NTC. So that as we go through the report, sort of the figures that you see in there are based on that proxy value calculation. So those themes, outcomes and measures then are also split into sort of categories that align with the 7 Wellbeing Goals of the Wellbeing Future Generations Act. That's how we face this report. We sort of try to drag some themes out of it and start talking about some activity too. So we won't go into too much detail about the actual activity itself, but we'll sort of give some summaries as we go. So the first theme is Prosperous Wales. This one is the Wellbeing Goals of the Wellbeing Future Generations Act. This is very much about sort of having an active economy and what we contribute in the local area. So the TOMs in that section look at things like employees that work in the NCC boundary and within the Cardiff capital region as well, noting that one subset of the other, recognition of unions, and then activities drive advancement in the local area. So in this part, we also measure things like the number of hours we spend doing local school and college visits, recognise training opportunities and apprenticeships that we run within the business. So there's the narrative sort of across page 22, and then in page 24, you'll see there's a table. We set all of the sections up like this. It covers off the specific TOMs and measures that are set out by in partnership with NCC, and then what the social value is to be created by that when you apply the proxy value. The second theme then to move on to is a more equal Wales, and this is very much around sort of people realising reaching their full potential. And some of the activities are a little bit linked with the activity that we undertaken in the previous section. This is one of the sections I think as a management team as a business we're really, really proud of, because we do a lot of work with young people and partners outside of with the council and outside of the council as well, like Careers Wales, Newport Youth Academy and local schools, in providing placement opportunities for children to come into the organisation and learn about construction, trade, business. Over the period of 24-25, we've delivered over 1,000 hours of work placements. They might be very short work placements, 1 day a week for a couple of weeks. There might be a longer term placement where over a couple of months with children. Our teams work really, really hard at creating space for that, to host those people, those individuals, and the feedback we've had, noted in the report, has been really positive about the impact that it makes for children, sort of confidence, or develop skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the next goals that the report goes into is a resilient Wales and globally responsible Wales. So these are more to do with, in particular, recycling. So in response to this, we've achieved 100% recycled or diverted waste from landfill by consolidating the waste that we produce at our offices at Caradog House and working closely with our waste contractor. Within facilities management, we've also expanded our product catalogue, which has reduced the number of plastic containers required and the reuse of spent containers elsewhere. the supply chain.
Okay, so the next part of the paper focuses on communities and culture. As a Newport-based company, it's no surprise that most of our workforce not only live in the communities they actually serve into. One thing Newport Norse and the wider Norse group has consistently done well over the years is encouraging employees to bring forward ideas for sponsorship and volunteering. There are countless examples of how we've contributed to schools, charities and community projects, some of which are highlighted in the paper. But today I just really want to bring attention to the two examples in the paper. Firstly, the Norse group big tidy up event. Before I go into this one, it should say Liz wearing in the paper and not Phil Brandley. Apologies. This is an annual group initiative aimed at tidying up local communities. Last year's pledge was lit the pig in the Liswell area of Newport, and a team from Newport Norse, along with other local volunteers, collected and removed an incredible amount of litter, enough to fill 3 open back cans. This effort was celebrated by the group, and they awarded Newport Norse with the Norse Group Environmental Impact Award for our contribution. Secondly, the adaptation of the school toilet. So this is a good story. So this is where some of our colleagues were able at the school, noted a problem and then brought it back to us. So basically, during the visit to the school, our team, none of the better people with severe physical disabilities struggled to use the accessible toilet due to the standard fixture heights. Our staff felt very strongly, I should put, but helping recognising this was about more than convenience. It's about giving a child the dignity they deserve in a basic daily function. So they come back, reported to their management. They really wanted to do something. So Newport Norse stepped up, used volunteer hours and covered material costs to adapt the toilet free of charge, ensuring that people could use it independently. The head teacher's feedback said it all really. The difference made was far greater than any financial reward. And moving on to healthier Wales. Briefly building on the installation of EV charging points at Cynghorydd House, we've continued expanding our electric pool fleet. In the past year, colleagues have driven over 90,000 electric miles, and we're working with the Council's climate change team towards growing it a lot further in the new business. Thank you.
So each of these sections then cover off the particular wellbeing sort of goals and the themes, and we've aligned the comms to it. But then on page 31, we've also placed a bit more of an infographic. One of the things that colleagues across Newport and Newport Norse really liked last year was having sort of everything in one place. So it's a bit of a summary of the different, all the different toms and what's produced by them. So that's on research, but obviously there's a lot more detail behind each of those infographics. A lot more to put on. The last thing to sort of note around the report is the demographic information that starts on page 33. So scrutiny members that we presented last year will be aware that we produce this in the report each year. It just gives a bit of an overview of the business and the makeup of our employee base. As ever, the challenge remains that our current data is a bit fragmented. So this goes out through an electronic system in the Norse group. People can respond if they want to. They don't need. They're not required to put in all of the demographic information, and sometimes that extra email that's gone out is not responded to. That is something we're working on for the new business. We have a real opportunity because as we be transferring from the current business into the new business, there's an opportunity to capture all of that data again fresh as we sort of onboard people onto the new system. So that is being looked at, but I am aware that the biggest, some of our data isn't particularly robust. So we stop there with the report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That presents the report to the committee. Happy for any of us to take questions.
Thank you very much then. And just before that, I just wonder if the Cabinet member would like to come in as part of the introduction as well, if she wants to say any words.
Thanks, Councillor Marshall. Yeah, I think I probably just emphasise some of the points that have been made already. Obviously, we are in the final months of, the operation of Newport Norse before the LATCO kicks in, and I have seen how much work has gone in to getting Norse and the council ready for that change. And again, I'd like to thank the staff at Norse and the officers here for all of that work, and to everyone for engaging so productively with it. And it was, it was good to read this report, because I think what came through was a lot of really strong green credentials from Newport Norse, and I think those are things that we're certainly hoping and feeling we can replicate in the new LATCO. And those really strong contributions to local skills and jobs with the placements and the apprenticeships. And you know what I really noticed, which really stood out, is how many people Norse directly employs from the Newport foundry, which is quite impressive really. I think it's around the 80% mark. You know, and then 90 something if you talk about the wider Cardiff capital region. So the company really does give back to the area, I think, and hopefully we can carry that on. You know, that's a real strength. And looking at the outcomes versus the targets, it seemed to me that for the most part we'd either met or exceeded the outcomes. You know, whether that be in terms of turnover or strengthening links with schools. So I think again there was quite a lot to celebrate in there. You know, a few points I'd probably like to look at in terms of the structure of the report going forward, which I've mentioned before, is I'd love to see, because obviously this is also a company that deals with management of our assets estate. I'd like to see in there some targets that sort of talk about the performance in terms of the asset management as well. You know, whether that's talking about how we've done in terms of rental income or reducing maintenance liabilities or reducing empty properties. And I think that would be quite a valuable contribution to this report going forward. You know, maybe that's something for the Scrutiny Committee to think about as well, but it's something that I've been thinking might be quite a useful addition. And clearly the other issue is how do we get people in terms of customer feedback to actually engage. And I think any thoughts the committee's got about how we can get people to respond and get that fuller picture, I think would be very welcome. You know, so I think if you guys have thoughts on that, I think everyone would gratefully receive that as well. So yeah, I think that probably wraps up what I was going to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howes, for that, and also positive to hear about some things that you have suggested about like asset management and things like that there as part of reports moving forward. It kind of links me on to, just before I bring colleagues in with questions, just basically if they could also just mention about how they found the format of the report. I know the report creators are interested in about that and about how we look at it and moving forward with it as well. So if you could mention maybe about how you found the report, that would be helpful on that side. So do ask colleagues that as well. What I will do is I'll bring in Councillor Screen first of all there. Councillor Screen, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just say that it's a very well presented report. You know, it's clear, easy to understand. I'm glad to see the demographic information provided. You know, breakdown of gender, ethnicity, age, and so on. I think that's very useful to see the range of employees that that you have. So yeah, it's really good. The only one question I got is a minor question really, but I noticed in the gender breakdown, obviously females are the biggest proportion, 65%, I believe. I just thought it might be useful to break that down into how many females are office-based and how many are actually out there in the field, you know, to get away from sort of stereotyping, you know, female employees, you know, if they're all based in the office rather than out there doing the skilled work. But apart from that, I think it's a very, very good report. Thank you.
I think that's a fair comment, Councillor. We can provide more detail around that, around sort of job types or departments or something. We'll have to think about how we do it as well. Our people data is currently structured. Yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely more light that we can shed on that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Screen. If I can bring in Councillor Bev Davis, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, following what Councillor Screen has said, it is a good report based on previous reports we've had from you. And I like the demographics of it. It does, like you say, that Councillor Screen said, it makes it a lot easier to read, and it also gives us that sort of we can sort of break everything down. So I agree with what Councillor Screen said about with regards to 65% female. One concern I have though is, and Cabinet member has already brought it up, was that it was just a 19% feedback on the survey. Is it? Can you see any reason why that it's only 19%, that it's so low?
If I answer that, Councillor. So that's an annual customer survey that we undertake at Newport Norse locally. We send it out via a QR code and online form effectively to schools. So I think there's 71, 72 sort of customers that get asked, and the majority of those customers are schools. It's been run by the Norse group previously, who used an outside company called VTM, who effectively repeatedly called schools until they had answers. So we had a much higher sort of response rate at that point because schools were asked again and again and again until they did. We run it slightly differently because we run it in-house, in that we ask probably 3 or 4 times over the autumn term. We've struggled in communication with schools as to when the best time of year to ask them those questions are. There's a standard set of questions around which services they use from us and how they feel about them. But generally the feedback has been sort of towards the end of the summer term, everything's sort of very busy with sort of school closed down and sort of, you know, the schools are sort of running out of energy. Similarly, across sort of December and the winter, there's a lot going on with like nativities and things like that. So we've tried to find the best place to do that, which has been across the autumn term, but I think it's still a struggle for schools to make time for it. We've talked to schools about this in some of the forum that we attend. So on a termly basis, we have what we call the Education Liaison Group. So representatives from primary schools and secondary schools meet with the wider management team at Newport Norse. And we agendaed this one for them in the autumn, as we've just gone through, to say, you know, how do we make it more accessible for you? We're exploring different ways of doing that. Some of that might be to do it on a cluster by cluster basis. So some of the feedback from schools has been that whilst they want to feedback, sometimes their feeling is that unless they have something negative they'd like to put in order to get a response to, that they sort of, it falls off their radar because the schools are very busy places, there's lots going on. One of the things they've asked for is that if we could sort of address it on a cluster by cluster basis, then they may sit down in that meeting, which is a scheduled thing, and they will sit and make the time for it there and then. We've engaged in that with them, and that was, you know, from our point of view, we want feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. It's making it as accessible as we can so the schools can create space to do that. Our works ordering system that we operate as well in terms of how we, when a school rings into the help desk to raise a job, how that then flows through into our workers who then go in and complete that job. Currently, there's a feedback mechanism built into that on site, and that was really successful sort of prior to COVID. Over that sort of period since then, it's become, I think, less useful because sometimes you have to go and find somebody on site to answer the questions. Do they really feel comfortable sort of maybe giving negative feedback if they need to in front of somebody? So in our new system, in the new organisation, we're also working on a way to send that directly to schools when a job's completed. So the idea would be better communication when the job's completed, but also a chance to feedback there and then about that specific job, rather than waiting till the sort of an annual survey. Sorry, it's a bit of a long answer, but we're doing lots of exploratory stuff with schools to understand how it's best to ask those questions of them so that they have the best chance of responding to us.
That's good. I mean, yeah, I can appreciate the answer is long, but there's a lot of information within that answer. Going from a negative to a positive, I'd really like to say, you know, congratulations to all the Norse group with regards to what you're doing in relation to apprenticeships, other things you're doing, like with the tidy up. So, you know, well done for all that. One question coming off the back of that is, with regards to apprenticeships, how many apprentices do you have that actually complete their full time in the apprenticeship?
I've been in the business 10 years now. We've had one apprentice in that period, I think, that's left us before the end of their apprenticeship with us, and that's because they've moved their apprenticeship to somewhere else. everyone else has completed their apprenticeship with us. Whether they've gone on to employment with us is then a slightly different thing, and that's having a vacancy available from. But I think broadly they've mostly converted because sort of it's part of our talent planning process, if I'm honest, as well, and that sort of we're training people up in the background. So as people might look to retire or change job, or as people have moved, there's been opportunities for them to move into. But there's been one sort of over the last 10 years that didn't complete with us because he moved jobs somewhere else.
There's certainly a couple on our trades. So there's a couple of electrical apprentices who are now electricians. We've got a carpentry apprentice that's now a carpenter. We've had a young lady join us in the office in the voids team. She was an apprentice. She's now a fully fledged voids officer. Yeah, we've been quite successful, to be honest, with the people we've developed, and it's something. Well,
yeah, that's very pleasing to hear, and again, well done with regard to that. That is a great percentage of your apprentices coming to fruition. So that is brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much there, Councillor Davis. I suppose the question linked on to that, just for perspective of the committee, from the report, is in the past year, what is the kind of scene, if you will, in relation to schools and the buy-up and being custom to Norse and the partnership that is? Because I know sometimes we said, about the surveys being hard to get them to fill things in, but what is the actual trying to get into the schools generally? Is it like everyone in? Is it kind of thing, or what type of services are provided by yourselves to them?
So we operate cleaning around 38. Across 38 schools. Some use other companies external, or they do it themselves in-house. We serve all schools for building maintenance and compliance, which some work we do through education colleagues to improve or expand the school, and some is purely discretionary, where they phone us up and ask us to either refurbish something or react to a problem. Is that what you mean? Sorry.
It's more the fact of generally over the time period, obviously the relationship has changed and the dynamics has changed. So depending on schools and school governors and who they choose each year. So sometimes, as you said, I use the example that you had about the cleaning contracts, but others might be, more contractual for like actual work's been done. So it's just basically a two-scope. So what does that scene look like in the last 12 months? But also, have you learned any lessons through that partnership working in the last 12 months?
So if we use cleaning as an example, so we operate a 3-year SLA with and on behalf of the council. So every 3 years, schools are sort of actively asked if they still want to join in for the next 3 years. And at that point, we don't often have somebody leave at that point. We do have, obviously, sometimes there's this sort of churn where other decisions are made and schools want to take it in-house themselves, or they want to take it out to a third-party provider to test the market. That's totally fine. The way that the SLA operates is that schools can leave or join at any point during that. So if they join at sort of, in that 3-year period at the end of year 1 or halfway through year 2, that's not a problem for us. That means that it's quite, we can be quite open about how we engage with schools. So the people that we work with currently, that they know that there's a, if the relationship wasn't working, or if there's something we weren't able to provide the sort of service that they were looking for, that there's a sort of an exitability. But also similarly, where schools are thinking about changing how that operates, they can come into us at any point. So over the last 12 months, so not in last year's financial report that we've presented to Scrutiny today, but sort of we take from January, we've had 2 secondaries join us in September, and an expansion, if you like. So it's another school for us, but it's a Ymddiheuriadau XD school has a site now in Cofnodion, and they've also joined us based on the sort of our relationship with Ymddiheuriadau in Gear. I think our reflection would probably be that our relationships with schools are very quite open, and that I think that's reflected in sort of the amount of work that they've given us over the years, and there's uptick, particularly in discretionary funding. So although in a cleaning SLA it is a discretionary budget, they could choose to spend it with us, they could choose to spend it elsewhere. But that also goes to the maintenance work in Carl's area, where some things are statutory and are sort of built into that the council have with Newport Norse, but other things are, they choose to come to us for that, and that's reflected in our increased turnover.
Yeah, that discretionary spend has increased year on year, and this year is going to be the best year so far trading within the schools. So I suppose the proof is in the numbers, really, that we're getting more trust and more work coming in from the schools.
Just come in there. I think it's worth saying as well that obviously during the period where we've been involved in the implementation of the LAPCO, we're obviously keen to communicate really effectively with schools and others, but obviously schools are a key customer and it's where a lot of our work is, and that's really shown that actually that engagement with schools needs to continue, probably even more so into the future. There's some myth busting there to do and some better understanding of how the company will operate. Some legacy things from Newport Norse and obviously new ways of working going forward. So we're really keen to obviously get that engagement with schools to a better place than maybe it has been. Even if things are staying the same, to make sure that obviously heads and others are clear on what that means and what they, just down to fees and charging and what they're paying for, what they're getting for their money, that sort of thing. I think that would be key to obviously maintaining those relationships. I mean, the sheer volume of work that comes through shows that schools do use us, but there will always be schools that will choose to go elsewhere, and it's those that we need to sort of key into really and sort that engagement out. So that's something we're keen to do for the future.
Thank you. And I know we said about the hardship of trying to get into schools and others about the survey, and I know mentioned from what colleague had noted. I suppose my follow-up question in relation to that would be, how are we able to establish good practice and best practice through that? Because as noted, we only hear about things when something negative has occurred or something bad has occurred, but how are we seeking, best practice to be able to feed back to staff from both sides, but also to showcase and demonstrate the good work of the partnership?
So I think it's worth noting that the annual customer survey is just one of the mechanisms by which we seek feedback. So obviously we have operational issues on site where something gets missed or forgotten about, or we attend to a job and we can't get access. So there's communication all the time perhaps with schools. Part of that though for us is about also capturing where we have good feedback. So that's why we run a compliment system. So part of our quality management system is that we record and respond to both good and bad feedback. The good feedback then for us tracks through the organisation in recognising the colleagues themselves and then celebrating that. So we try and share that around as much as we can. So if somebody's doing something great over here, we want everyone to know about it because we want them to be encouraged by that, and we want to see that there's value in doing that. In terms of how we engage with schools going forward to get the most out of that sort of that feedback, I think for us that is very much continuing the work, as Sarah said, that we're doing through the sort of the project, if you like, setting up the new business, because we've established a lot of relationships at a deeper level, but also going out to schools and asking them how best is to engage with them, because we know that their primary function is to deliver education, not necessarily to sort of engage with us from the buildings. That's a bit that we need to mould our business around.
Thanks guys. If I could just come in there, Chair. One of the things I recognise when we come to this committee once a year is committee have said every year since I've been here, there's some brilliant stuff here, why does nobody know about it? So we often talked about that. As you say, you only ever hear of the escalations or the issues. So we're, in the new vehicle, I think we're really committed to working in partnership to make sure those good news stories are out there for the public as well, but for schools, for members and for members of staff, because we do have some pieces of work that probably could go through the arrangement previously and in the future, and we need those positive stories out there to make sure we're all making the maximum use for the council out of the services that can be provided. So we're committed to working on that together, I think.
That's great. Thank you ever so much for that answer, everyone. Thank you. I will bring in Councillor Paul Bright and appreciate your patience there. Thank you very much. If you want to come in, Councillor Bright, please.
Yeah, cheers, Jock and Val. Thank you. mainly a comment, really. I congratulate you on the social value impact of Norse. It's great. I thought I might have to declare an interest, as my daughter plays for the great Greg Velladino girls football team. She was captain, but wasn't for the under-6s. But obviously that investment in local communities is really, really good. And it's obviously, I know, but we're not talking about moving forward, but the value you built into Newport is ensuring those foundations are carried on into 2026. That would be my comment. And just picking up what's just been mentioned about how the general public don't realise the good work that has been going on. I mean, if you were to Google or on Facebook, Newport Norse, there's nothing there at all. Your social media presence is non-existent. So again, moving forward, maybe it's something to look into. Thank you.
Thank you very much, though, Councillor Bright. I don't know if anyone wants to come in with an answer to that, please.
Shall I come in?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. We find that when we're sort of recruiting, don't we, and things that, what do you know about Newport Norse? And it's quite a difficult question for people to answer because there's not a huge amount of information about it. That is something, yes, we can do better, and we need to be sort of shouting from the rooftops, really, of the good work. There's nothing to be ashamed of there, is it, the good work that we're doing? So obviously that does form part of the new venture, and there's a lot of work going on, in particular with regards to marketing, branding. So I think that will show as a difference going forward. So we do recognise that as well. I think it's a fair comment.
Thank you very much there. And did you have any other questions there, Councillor Bright?
No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
No problems. Thank you, Councillor. And if I can bring in Councillor Druitt, please, as well.
Yeah, thanks for this report. It's very readable. Enjoyed reading. Lots of good stuff in here. Can I just clarify how many different customers, did you have last year? Approximately.
Yeah, it's difficult. We average, if you just do building maintenance, we average over 1,000 different work orders every year. But quantifying that may be some, many in different. We've never, and I'll be honest, our current systems are a bit antiquated. It's hard to pull that sort of information.
Yeah.
Our customers across the council may be a department, they may be an end user of a department, maybe a school. So there's a lot of orders that go through, but they might come in at different points in the council.
So that just takes me back to the 71 customers you emailed. Yes. For a response, and then you had a low response on that. And I do appreciate that you're now going to head teachers and to the cluster groups of head teachers and getting maybe that formalised, that feedback formalised. And I think that will certainly help you, I'm sure. So. Anecdotally, I hear that some schools, and a number of schools, are not happy about some of the services provided by Norse, and I think that will certainly help. Can I ask how far you think that Newport Norse is a nimble organisation, quick thinking, and able to work at speed?
Yeah, so if I take it from my areas, the building maintenance areas, we're certainly that, because we're very reactive in that sense. If I expand that further to sort of planned maintenance, along with bigger works, where we failed in the past is probably the way we've communicated to the client. So it may be, so they meet a client on site, and there's discuss the job, they get the client brief, they go away. There's a lot of work that happens then. But historically, we haven't been very good at telling the school at certain points. Actually, now we've done this, we've done that. We got to go see building this one here. We got to all of that sort of thing. But all the school hears is silence. So Norse are not doing anything. But so we've got systems in place. I mentioned it in my thing. We've got systems in place now where there's flags. If you've had this job for a while, it'll flag up. You communicate, and you've got to communicate on these. Even if you're communicating nothing, just to say this is where we're at. Yeah, so it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to criticise us, rightly so, when you don't hear anything. but there's actually a lot of work going on in the background.
Can I ask another question, Chair? This time well, I think it mostly has been answered actually, about sustainability and environment. And I was really pleased to hear and see in the report about the use of electric vehicles, and then you mentioned about various environmental things and litter picks, and I think those things are really important. Can you sort of say a little bit more about how Newport collaborates with the City Council on achieving the wider environmental objectives and net zero goals?
Sorry.
With this support in the carbon reduction team from the council, we're delivering. It's been a huge program of it's heat pumps and photovoltaic PV across the estate. So our team are the ones that are managing that process on behalf of the council. Yeah, so
sorry, yeah, I was thinking about EV cars and things, we have that in Newport, but yeah, that's a big area of work. So Newport Council is really successful at getting the grant funding in.
Yeah.
So like what you say about being nimble, obviously they get the grant funding in, we've been able to react then in order to support that work. They get the funding, we deliver on the project. So that's been a big pipeline of work for Newport, which is great, but also obviously it's added then to the carbon reduction targets that the council needs to meet.
As an organisation, then we talk about electric vehicles, and then we've got more pool fleet, in particular electric charging from the office, and that's part of the work towards new business as well, putting in more electric chargers. But also, if you think about the waste that we generate by our activities out on site, we've now, 18 months, 2 years, we've consolidated that back to house to our offices, where it gets sorted and worked through separately, so that all of it now goes to somewhere other than landfill. So some of it goes to zero separate landfill, some of it goes straight into recycling. We've done quite a lot of work to get the waste we're producing out on site. Sometimes we're doing reactive jobs, doesn't go through the school anymore, it should come back to us. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, the other thing, so just to mention there with, so we're very heavily involved in new builds with schools, for example. We're looking there all the time at the design of those buildings, which are the net zero, looking at how they're constructed. So again, it forms part of all parts of the business, from reactive maintenance right up to obviously the building of a brand new schools.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was going to partly say what Sarah's just said then. So, as part of the climate change strategy of the local authority, that's got various strands. Our buildings is one of those strands. Norse colleagues are very critical partners within that. So that's looking at both new builds. So, for instance, the prep we're going into the replacement school in Vets at the moment, and actually, the advice provided by Norse colleagues to the council on how we can approach that, based on industry standards and best practice as well, which has been really helpful for that. And then look at our current estates, and actually they talked about the access to the grant funding, but also the other work we're trying to do around our optimisation programme for our estate as well. So very critical partners with them within all of that.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you all. I think it's majorly one more question from myself, and then do a round robin of the team. Obviously, good format, the report, really interesting, really, good and easy to read. And I suppose the question I just wish to add is, obviously, the partnership reports about the social value, which is fantastic amount that's actually within our community, the things like apprenticeships and things like that you've already spoken about this evening, which obviously is really impressive on that side. I suppose the question is, how do we ensure that this is a long-term investment rather than short-term wins? Just within that, what type of scope do you see within that, and how can we ensure that these wins are sustainable for the long term? Thank you.
So I think that's about us bedding it into business practices. So obviously some of the interventions we have are short term, so going out and delivering a skills workshop at a primary school or a secondary school might be considered short term. You sort of deliver it and then hopefully that has an impact, but how long does that last, we don't know. But if we're baking that into the way that the business operates, then I think that we can repeatedly draw on that and we can roll that out again and again and again as that example to sort of cohorts of students at schools, and we adapt to the needs of the school as well. If what we could talk about in terms of longer term impact possibly is one of our work placements. So there was a work placement, a young lad, gentleman who was with us, I think through Newport Youth Academy, was on a longer term placement for us, wasn't necessarily sort of aligned to school particularly well. He was in for us for over a longer period, so a couple of months or doing 2 days a week, something like that. When he was at the appropriate sort of age and ready and looking for work, it just so happened we actually had a labour vacancy at the same time. And that was through some of the eggs in the business sort of moving elsewhere. And 27 applicants applied for that job, that work placement person being one of them, went through a standard panel, standard sort of recruitment process, and actually sort of the confidence that the young person had managed to pull together through sort of their work experience with us and any other work they do in the youth academy things, actually was successful in securing that job and now works for us as an employee. And for us as a management team, I think that was sort of a real highlight of the longevity of some of what we do over here in the department, sharing some skills, sharing some experience, and then seeing that wash through into somebody's sort of life and employment. It's being able to do and making sure that we bake that into the business, so there's opportunities are happening all the time. We want more success stories like that.
That's great, and again, that's really positive, and I do appreciate it, and thank you for that. I suppose it's just doing the round robin now, just to see if there is anyone else that wants to come in, and I will start with Councillor Bright because you are at the top of my screen there. Do you want to come in with anything further or comments, Councillor Bright?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. And then Councillor Alan Screen. Sorry, Councillor Screen.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, no further questions.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much there. And Councillor Davis?
No, nothing more from me, Chair.
No worries at all. And in the room, Councillor Jewett?
Just thank you for a good report and very enjoyable reading, and wish you well in the transition into the new organisation.
That's great. And before we give any final comments to the table, can I ask Neil if you wouldn't mind just reading back the recommendations and comments there, just to make sure that we're all happy with what's been mentioned?
Very much, Chair. Comments down, committee advice report was well presented, clear and easy to understand. The inclusion of demographic data was useful, and praised the Norse group for positive work and achievements in relation to the apprenticeships and congratulated on the social value. Committee requested that for the breakdown of females, could future reports provide a breakdown of how many females are office based and how many are in the field? And also Councillor Bright's comment about the social media presence. Of that, is there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to the report?
Try to come in there, Chair. This is really key, but you know, the apprentices and the good social value work, I think we should credit Newport Norse, not the Norse group, because that's primarily a local. I think it was said that it was the Norse group, but it isn't. It's Newport Norse that's done that, so I think it's important for us all to record that. Thanks.
I think so, and to commend the work obviously on that side, and I think locally to see the benefits that obviously the partnership has had, so definitely to commend that for sure. Thank you very much, Tracy, for that. Just double checking, is there any other comments that any officers or yourself, Councillor Howells, if you wanted to come in just about what you've heard today?
Well, I think just to repeat what I said earlier, really, whether the committee wants to add as a recommendation that possibility of having the assets management as a performance indicator going forward, but you know, I don't want to sort of push it on the committee at all either, and equally we can discuss it in other forums as well. So yeah.
Thank you very much for that recommendation. I think I'm more than happy to take that on board, but I will look at colleagues just to give their indication. Councillor Jewett, would you be kind of keen for that as well?
Yes, indeed, sir. Yeah.
Yep, and just look at those online. You can put your cameras on and put a thumbs up. Yeah, I got a nod. Yep. Yep, that's fine. Yeah, so we would agree with that as well. Neil, if you wouldn't mind just to add that in if you haven't already, thank you very much there. So I appreciate that and a really good report there. So if happy, because it should be very brief, are you okay just to stay in the room just a few moments just to finish off and then we'll all finish together? Is that okay? Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Neil, if we go on to the Scrutiny Advisory Report, so that's yourself there, please.
Very much, Chair. Just to advise committee with the actions arising outcomes monitoring. We've got a few actions and outcomes which just waiting for comments on, but just included the ones which are complete. For the next meeting, it'll be on the 10th of December. We've got Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence, and the Safe in Newport Community Safety Partnership mid-year update.
That's everything. Yep, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Neil. And if we just go on to the minutes of the previous meeting there, so just looking for any indications, and anyone want to propose them as a true and accurate record?
Yes, Chair.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Jewett, and I can see colleagues online, so more than happy with that as well there. So that does bring the meeting to a conclusion there, so happy to stop the live meeting, but thank you ever so much for everyone for your attendance and for a really good session there. Thank you all.
That's good.
Thanks.